3, 2, 1, blast off. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the MSP Chat Podcast, your weekly visit with two talking heads talking with you about the services, strategies, and success tips you need to make it big in managed services. My name is Rich Freeman. I am Chief Analyst at Channel Master, the organization responsible for the show. I am joined, as I am every week, by our other co-host, our Chief Strategist at Channel Master, Eric Simpson. Eric, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Rich. I'm getting ready to wrap up this very, very, very busy week and then head off to meet you for a super heavy, busy week next week. So I can't wait for us to meet each other in person and do what we do together that we do so often via virtual meetings. What do you think?
I'm looking forward to seeing you in the flesh, sir. I always do. And we've got a huge week. We are doing all sorts of exciting stuff next week. So first of all, we're recording this episode for you. You are listening to or watching it after the Kaseya Connect event, but we are recording it just a little bit before that event. At that show, Eric and I will be presenting or co-presenting a few different sessions. We are going to be recording an interview with the general manager of the security suite at Kaseya, Mike Puglia. You're going to hear that later in this episode of the show. We are going to record one of those sessions I referred to that we are doing together at the Kaseya Connect event, or specifically the IT Glue Experience pre-day event. That is actually going to be a panel discussion about growth tips for MSPs. We're going to be recording that live as it happens. That will be part of next week's show, the next episode of the show. So we're going to have that for you coming up in a week's time. And Eric and I are super excited about that. And then after that whirlwind 2 days, we get on a plane Tuesday evening next week. We fly to San Francisco for the RSA conference, giant security conference. And later on, Eric, we won't do it now, but you and I have to set an over-under bet. We're going to be in Las Vegas. We've got to set an over-under bet on how many steps we get in at RSA. Is it, 50,000? Is that maybe where we set the bar? It'll be interesting to see.
You're scaring me, Rich. You really are. All right. So I don't want to think about that anymore. I'm just going to bulk up, make sure I got plenty of carb load for the very, very busy, frenetic week next week.
This is what happens when you partner in business with a guy whose blog is called Channelholic. You go all in, Eric, and we're gonna. It's gonna be a lot, but it's going to be fun, and we'll share it all with you folks in our audience when that is done. Until then, let's dive into our story of the week, and it involves data that I pulled from two different studies that came out this week that kind of perfectly dovetail and underscore an important issue that we've touched on from time to time on the show here, which is the increasingly important and strategic and impactful role that AI is playing in the business of delivering managed services. So some of this data, to begin with, comes from Microsoft's 2025 Work Trend Index, which was just published as we record this. They collected data. This is a lot of this is telemetry from Microsoft 365 deployments. So trillions of productivity signals, as Microsoft says, 31,000 people, 31 countries, a lot of data they sifted through. And they did some polling here as well. And they, nearly half, 46% of the business leaders they polled says their companies are using, not AI, mind you, but AI agents to automate workflows or processes today. This is across industries. That is changing the nature of roles, of needed skills inside of organizations. So as the use of agents increases, 28% of business managers today are considering hiring AI workforce managers to lead hybrid teams of people and agents. 32% plan to hire AI agent specialists to design, develop, and optimize them within the next 12 to 18 months. So you're looking at like just under a third of businesses are already starting to hire people whose job basically is to run AI agents. Now, again, this is kind of across industries. Microsoft called out sort of a subset of the 31,000 person sample that they looked at, and they identified these people as working for what they called frontier firms. These are companies that are sort of on the leading edge of AI agent adoption, and these are relatively rare companies right now. There are only 844 people out of 31,000 sampled who are at these frontier firms. But the frontier firms are where everybody in and outside of managed services is headed right now. And why this matters and why everyone is headed that direction becomes apparent in this study. 71% of the people who work for frontier firms say their company is thriving, as opposed to 37% of businesses generally. So the healthiest businesses, at least from the perspective from inside, is that the healthiest businesses, the ones that are growing fastest, are the ones that are out in front on agentic AI right now. Now, as I say, Microsoft's just looking all across the waterfront, every different industry, et cetera. But there was also a study, a state of the SOC study from Enable that came out this week that has some interesting data in it, indicating what AI and agentic AI can do specifically in the realm of IT. And so a couple of different findings from that study. The study shows that AI can automate 70% of all incident investigation and threat remediation activity. And this is based on Enable's own experience, right? So they acquired Adlumin last year. These are the folks who are providing Enable's NDR service. They're operating state-of-the-art SOC. What they're seeing inside those four walls is that AI can already fully automate 70% of incident investigation and threat remediation. And the Adlumin SOC team has amplified its threat hunting capabilities using AI by 153x, just to give you an idea of the productivity boost that we're looking at here. Meanwhile, 78% of leaders, this is kind of back to the Microsoft study, 78% of leaders at businesses of all kinds are considering hiring for AI-specific roles to prepare for the future, 95% within the frontier firms. And yet, I will tell you, Eric, as we record this, I am at the Robin Robbins TMT Bootcamp event in Dallas. I've been talking to MSPs. A lot of awareness and interest in AI and automating with AI. I'm talking to some people who are already doing some pretty interesting and exciting things. I'm not talking to a lot of frontier firms, I would say, at this conference right now. And so, the Enable numbers there, those results give you a sense for what you as an MSP can potentially accomplish using AI. And I think folks in the audience here need to be kind of thinking even that much harder about their adoption of AI internally, their AI strategy, their strategy for leveraging this technology in a way that is safe for the business and the customers, but that protects them, allows them to grow the business, increase their productivity by these massive amounts the way Enable has, and protects them basically from falling behind the MSP frontier firms that will be doing this over the course of the next 12 to 24 months.
Wow, Rich, there's so much to unpack there in both of those studies. I guess from my perspective, the question that I would love an answer to is how many MSPs are putting a strategy together to leverage AI, not only for like a point product or a point service or an activity or something like that, but just kind of a top to bottom review of the organization as a whole. I'm just imagining what an AI consultant would be doing for businesses, coming in and saying, we're going to assess your entire organization from top to bottom, every business unit. And we're going to identify, maybe to start, 3 or 4 low-hanging fruit opportunities where we can leverage AI in each of these business units or these workflows in order to raise the visibility of the data, the performance itself to a level, and then come back around and do it to the next level. I'm just curious how many MSPs are really whiteboarding what's coming down the pike, because my sense is if we're not doing that now, then these frontier organizations that are MSPs are going to have such a first mover advantage that it's going to be difficult for other MSPs to catch up. I think there's just so much value that AI can bring in the overall business rather than just maybe on the service desk or for some sales admin stuff and things like that. I'd love to hear your thoughts, Rich.
Yeah, and obviously I can't quantify an answer to that, but I mean, I spoke to somebody at the conference here who says that he has I think the term used was automation engineer on the staff. Now that is more in the realm of RPA than AI, but he has someone whose job basically is to think about automation and productivity through automation. I spoke to somebody else who has what he called an AI champion on the team. So not necessarily a full-time job for this person, but there is somebody who's gone deeper into the capabilities of the AI technologies this particular company is using right now and is kind of thinking about where do we go next beyond what we're doing now, with an eye towards the idea that as soon as it feels safe and practical, that they will start doing things with AI on a fully autonomous, automated basis. They're getting there now. They already have this particular company already has basically AI manning the help desk overnight. When the employees of this company are asleep, if you call in, AI is going to answer. You're going to get a human voice. It's going to do some basic triage work. If it figures out the easy thing that needs to be done, password reset, it'll do it. If not, it'll say, please hold, and it'll text a live human tech, and somebody will get on, whoever's on call will get on to deal with the issue. But they've already got somebody whose job basically is to take the company as far as it can go down that road today and keep them moving so that they're leveraging the power of these technologies as quickly as they feel it's safe to do so.
Wow. I mean, AI, the future is now, right? We're seeing it right before our eyes. And I think it's generally accepted that the first thing that an organization should do when it's getting ready to pioneer or R&D something is to appoint a champion, someone whose responsibility it is to at least collate all of the data, gather it, and then lead the charge. If everybody's responsible, nobody's responsible, right, Rich? So good on that MSP, and I think we could all, no matter what we're doing, as an MSP or as an SMB business owner, these are good kind of first steps to take when considering how to evaluate the benefit and the risk, and then how to move forward in a thoughtful way to explore how to leverage AI to the benefit of the organization and the clients they serve.
Well, Eric, we are talking about moving beyond the basics of service delivery here, and that is a pretty good lead into your tip of the week because it's about getting beyond a different kind of basics.
You bet, Rich. And today we're talking about getting back to sales basics. And it's been a while since I think I've talked about sales on the program, but just recently I've begun working with a few new MSP partners. And what I've noticed is, to the benefit and maybe sometimes to the challenge of the intention of PSA solutions, trying to be everything for everyone, optimizing the quoting module and the proposal module, integrating it with QuickBooks or your accounting program and all that seem to be no brainers. Like, wow, this makes it easy. I have my pricing of my services. I've got my agreements. It makes it easy for me to put together these quotes into a template and then deliver it to my prospects and or clients, and try to get them to say yes. And Rich, in today's more hybrid kind of a business environment and a sales environment, what I'm a little bit concerned about is we're getting away I think, from sales basics from a consultative perspective. So what I mean by that is these platforms, if we're not careful, make it so easy for us to generate quotes and things like that, that it kind of removes some of that consultative approach and of classic service selling, the methodologies that I like to teach sales teams to do and things like that. And I'm seeing a lot of partners that are just kind of using the quoting templates as rote from the platform, and it really does not reflect, I think, the value of the relationship and the service that the MSP wants to promote to their clients. So I just wanted to kind of zoom out a little bit and speak to the folks that are leveraging not only the PSA solutions, but other CRM platforms, and speak directly from a consultative perspective. I like the ability to have a very meaningful, qualifying conversation with a client. And I'm not saying this isn't being done, right? I think that MSPs and sales professionals in general, Rich, really understand how to have that pain alternative solution kind of a conversation with clients, trying to really uncover not only their immediate pain and needs, but also the latent needs that they might not be thinking about, and then build that into kind of their presentation. And by presentation, I don't mean sending over, a quote that basically, has a few paragraphs and then kind of a list of services and gear and gets the client to, electronically sign it, right? What I mean by a presentation is that component that says, I've heard you, Mr. or Mrs. Client, and I've put together how I like to teach teams to sell, Rich, a short slide deck to make sure that I understood everything, that that I understood everything. Here are the things that you shared with me. Here are your pains and challenges. Here are your alternatives. And there's always 3 alternatives that every buyer, no matter who it is, Rich, or what they're buying, considers before making a buying decision, especially one that is so meaningful to their organization. The first thing that a buyer thinks about before saying yes to something or ultimately saying no is, number one, what if I did nothing? Like, what if I did nothing? What's the worst thing that can happen? Well, obviously, that could be the costliest option, especially when we're talking about today's day and age of cybersecurity and things like that. The second option that they think is, what if could I fix it myself? Well, obviously, if a buyer could fix something themselves, if they had the expertise and the time and the energy and the effort and the money to do it, they'd have done it already. So that's an easy one to overcome. And then the third one, the third option that a buyer thinks about, Rich, is, well, why not go with one of your competitors? Why go with you? And that ultimately, based on a couple of factors, could also be the wrong decision. The solution is always to go with us. And then it allows the sales professional to kind of conduct this conversation. A couple of slides and say, here's your pains that we understood. Here are your alternatives that you're thinking about. And let me tell you why none of these work for you based upon what you've shared with me. And the solution is to go with us. And this is the first time, Rich, where we get to talk about ourselves in this conversation. The sales conversation should be all focused on the prospect or the client. And then to say, this is why we're the solution. And these are our values and benefits. And then based upon our prior conversations and your pains and challenges and the budget range that you share with me, we've put together this package for you. And typically, Rich, that's going to be our good, better, or best package. We've just winnowed it down to what makes sense for them within their budget range. And then overcome any objections. And then the client says, yep, I'm ready to move forward. That's when we send over the final agreement, right? So I think we're missing that consultative component sometimes when we're doing sales, or maybe we used to do it and we're taking shortcuts now and we're trying to get clients to just sign an agreement electronically. I'm sensing that with a few partners I'm working with now, and I hope that isn't representative of the majority of MSPs out there, because what we do is so sticky, so valuable, so important to a client's business that we want to make sure that we are reflecting that value during that sales presentation so that when they sign that agreement, we've done our job of making sure that that we have positioned ourselves away from any of the other competitors out there, and they are making the right decision and moving forward with us.
Yeah, I mean, what you're talking about is a potential very serious misuse of automation. To kind of go back a little bit to what I was talking about before, one of the sessions that we are leading at Kaseya Connect, and it's past tense by the time this show is out there, but it is a panel discussion involving MSPs who are using AI in their business right now, and two of them, it just so happens, are using AI today to automate the production of RFPs, which is great. I mean, that's a great use of AI because that's kind of rote work, and you really shouldn't be pouring hours of human effort in that. But if you come away from that thinking, great, AI is spitting out RFPs for me in a few seconds, and I'm just going to send that off to the customer and move on. That's a bad use of AI. What you want to do, and this goes to applying AI in the business more generally, is you automate the stuff that you really shouldn't be spending your time on. And that opens up more time for the stuff that you should be spending your time on, which in this case is having those consultative sales conversations and, ongoing consultative conversations with existing clients as well. So with automation, with these tools that you're talking about, it's not an either or thing. The tool is helping you free up time that you can use in more valuable ways, but you got to keep using the time in those valuable ways.
Absolutely right, Rich. And the top sales professionals that are, super successful and earning every dollar of comp and commission that they are receiving, you better believe that they're selling consultatively and building relationships with clients and not just simply sending out, quotes and RFP responses out of a system, hoping someone, determines that, yeah, you are the best solution for me based on this, 12-page agreement you sent me and signing up.
Go to Amazon, folks, and see if you can find a best-selling book from a legendary sales professional about achieving big numbers in sales by just sending a bunch of emails. And there are any number of books that will teach you how to sell consultatively. But that is a key to success in sales in any industry. Well, folks, Eric and I are going to take a quick break here. When we come back on the other side, we're going to be joined, as we told you we would be earlier on in the show, by Mike Puglia. He's the GM of the Security Suite at Kaseya. We are going to be talking with him about all things security at Kaseya right now. That's obviously a very big concern over there. So we'll see what their thinking is all about now and going forward. We're going to have that for you in just a few moments. Please stick around. And welcome back to part 2 of this episode of the MSP Chat Podcast, which, as you can see, we are recording live from Kaseya Connect 2025 here in Las Vegas. We are joined by the general manager of Kaseya's Security Suite, Mike Puglia. Regular viewers and listeners of the program might remember that Mike joined us on the show about 6 months ago at DattoCon. The reason he is now a regular on the show is because Kaseya regularly breaks security news at these major conferences. This one was no exception. We're going to get into that in a moment. But first, for people who have not met you before, Mike, just tell them a little bit about what you do at Kaseya.
Great. I run the Security Suite, which is all of the security products, everything from product management, R&D to go-to-market. I've been here now. This is my 11th Connect. So time flies when you're having fun. And I have a background working for different security companies for longer than I want to admit.
So the big security news, and then there was backup news. There are multiple security-related announcements here at the show, but the biggest one was the launch of Kaseya SIEM. So from a big picture standpoint, before we get into that product specifically, what is the use case, the need for SIEM among MSPs?
Yeah, I think the big thing that we're starting to see, and we've seen it over time, things coming downstream from the enterprise to the small to mid-size enterprise, and small to mid-size organizations and the MSPs that serve them. And so we've seen more and more of adoption of technologies that were once relegated to enterprise. So years ago, if you had to do a pen test, now, even if you're a small company, you have to do a pen test at least annually, and we started to address that. It used to all be just AV. Now everybody is AV, EDR, MDR, and now a lot of the compliance requirements and even cyber insurance, regardless of the size of the company, are requiring SIEM for the ability to have all of the log data, all being a relative term. And if you are headed for, if any of your customers are, DoD contractors, which there are, depending on whose estimate, 70,000 to 100,000 in this country, they're going to have a SIEM. A lot of cyber insurance requires a SIEM. So some customers will have to dive a little bit deeper, and we wanted to make sure we had an offering that could do that for them.
Mike, what does it take to deliver a SIEM solution specifically crafted for MSPs?
Yeah, I think the big difference is there are many great SIEM products, and they were built for enterprises, whether it's Splunk or Alien Vault back in the day or others. But they come with that price tag, hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars, depending on how much data you're sending. And it's a bit much for a smaller organizations to be able to handle. So we look at what do they need to be able to record and deliver on. And that's where we focus. Instead of many, many moons ago, I worked at an enterprise, and I swear if you moved your mouse too quickly, it got logged to the SIEM. That was great for them, but it's not realistic for a smaller business. We were able to go deeper because we were already doing a lot of this kind of technology. We had a product, Rocket Cyber, which we acquired in 2001. Growth has been phenomenal. And it gets a lot of log data off of endpoints, firewalls, and various other applications. In October, we announced the acquisition of SaaS Alerts, which is getting a lot of the data off of, everyone knows about Microsoft 365 and Google. But what about some of the other apps that you have? Salesforce, Dropbox, etc. So getting all of that and marrying the two together in a solution that is easy for MSPs to manage, that highlights the noise, not all the false positives, but allows those who want to tinker to be able to search across everything. And so bringing together a lot of that technology that we had in those two products to add on for those who need a SIEM to be able to go through it is something that we're really excited about.
Yeah, so to talk a little bit more about what is Kaseya SIEM, what's in there, and then talk a little bit about the pricing, because this morning at the general session they announced introductory pricing, which was a little mind-blowing, but I'm curious where it goes from there.
It was a little mind-blowing. To begin with, it was looking at how, if you have Kaseya 365 endpoint and user, you already have a lot of the collection data in the various components of those solutions. So if you have those two, we're adding it on at $1 per user, because that's user being, all right, it's just a ballpark assumption of, if you're monitoring in Microsoft 365, I'm making up a number, 100 users, well, why do I have to make it complicated? You probably have about 100 computers. You probably have a handful of firewalls. Just charge by user to make it simple. And it's really just an add-on price to what you're already paying for those two other K365 solutions to make it easy. Because one of the biggest things with SIEM is pricing models. If you've ever tried to buy it, you probably don't know how much you're going to pay every month, right? Because how many events per second, how many gigabytes, terabytes, petabytes of data, how many attributes that aren't in your control and are usually just like cell phones used to be, usually at the end of the month, is a surprise. We don't want to have surprises, so we made it very simple. And we're going to start, you're already getting most of the technology that we have. For those who need a little extra to have the search and the deep compliance requirements of all the data, we've added it $1 per user. Will it go up from there? Probably, but I don't anticipate some massive change. We're going to go with the first 500 MSPs, as we announced here today. We'll take a look at, in the real world, what's really there. We've worked at really lowering our costs significantly because we have a lot more power to do that with a lot of the data center providers and technology providers behind us. So that's where we're headed with it.
So, Mike, I mean, the term disruptive comes to mind when I think about pricing for SIEM, because like you said, I mean, it is, traditionally unpredictable because you're just kind of combing through how many events and how much data and all these things. So from your perspective, what beyond, just the immediate impact of this pricing model and this offering, what are the implications for MSPs and maybe more importantly, the clients that they serve?
I think it's about giving them, another tool in their war chest to be able to use to help protect those organizations. And if we can do it at a price point that, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but it's close to it doesn't matter, that I can bring to bear these things without, as an MSP, impacting my bottom line significantly, my profit margin. And as a end customer that may need this technology but not really know anything about it, they're looking to the MSPs on, hey, I'm a healthcare provider that needs all these things that I'm being required to do. Yeah, we'll take care of it. They don't have to break the bank. So they can have a better relationship with, we're giving you more protection. We are not going to have to double your price that you pay us every month. And the MSP can do it profitably. As I said, what's interesting about the cybersecurity market, and it's just where we live today, is if you here at the show, if you go over to the exhibit hall, I didn't do a rough count, but probably 90% of those booths have something to do with cybersecurity. If you went back 5 years ago to Connect, it wasn't like that. And that's because those are the biggest threats that those end companies face today. And they're being either mandated by regulations, compliance requirements, or insurance to be able to do it. Those have simply come downstream.
One of the things that was emphasized to me in interviews here at the show earlier on in the week is that Kaseya SIEM is a fully managed solution. So talk a little bit about what you're doing, what the MSP who subscribes to that system is doing, and why you folks felt a fully managed SIEM is the way to go for MSPs.
Yeah, it's a great question, because we already have this model with our Rocket Cyber MDR. Essentially, the MSP is responsible for the normal things they do every day: deploy agents, connections, APIs, all of that. But we'll collect all the data. We will, our SOC will triage the data, which is really the heavy lifting. Like, I see X, Y, and Z, and in the emergency situations, they're going to take action. Something, someone's connected from Russia and they're doing X, Y, and Z. It doesn't do much good to send you an alert about it, right? So we'll isolate the machine, pick up the phone and call you, threat hunt across the organization. Now, the reason we did this with SIEM, it's really an extension of that. More data being collected from cloud applications, from endpoints, from other third parties, but not having you have to have a PhD in cybersecurity of how do I connect this firewall or how do I connect this third party application, and then having somebody with eyes on it that when alerts come up, they can either take action, they can call you, or for low priority, just pass it on to you, but be there. So if you pick up the phone and call and say, I have a question, that we can do that. It's interesting. We looked back at Rocket Cyber many, many years ago, probably 2019. They introduced it because it's an MDR solution. So it collects all the data. It goes to our SOC takes action, picks up the phone and calls you. They offered here's the data, right? No SOC behind it. And what you actually saw was the adoption kind of fell off dramatically because they're not there most MSPs don't have somebody on staff 24/7. I don't mind picking up having somebody on call like I already do in the middle of the night for emergencies and having to pay them if they take an emergency call. But I don't want to have a minimum of 10 people to do 7x24 by 365. That's a big hit to a lot of MSPs to add that amount of people. So we decided this was the best way to do it. We can control what's going on in the system. And they said this during the cast, that one of the things that is a double-edged sword about the technologies is we show everything we collect. So not just the alerts. A lot of organizations or vendors, they'll show you the alerts. But how did I get there? We have a lot of people that are technical in nature. So if it's a black box, they don't really like it. So you can see all the data we're collecting, because maybe in your organization, we want to, and I have someone that does this. I want to collect and report on every time someone prints in this organization. And there's some financial, reason for this. And like if they would steal data by printing, that seems a little strange, but couldn't they just email it or whatever? But that is one of their requirements. And they can see that with us, even though out of the box, we're not going to, be picking up the phone and calling you on it. But by giving you that option, it's kind of a double-edged sword. You could go in and see all the data, and you can make some changes and work with us. I say double-edged sword because some people, see all the data and they get, oh my goodness, those aren't the alarms. So we kind of try to walk right in the middle, do it for you, but have the ability to see everything that's happening behind the scenes.
Wow, that's a lot of data collection.
It is. I would say the other part about lowering prices is with some of the technologies today, when you have that data, the compression ratio of where you store it is absolutely insane these days. Not much like 10 years ago, where a majority of the cost for a SIEM-like technology or any type of storage technology was the cost of the storage. Now, most of it is the amount of compute as you're sending those events in and out.
Yeah, I was sitting in the keynote this morning and was amazed to find the statistics of how much you were able to reduce your internal costs in order to deliver this service. So, having these additions and these modifications, offering SIEM to MSPs, from your perspective, Mike, what other security services outside of maybe products should MSPs be thinking about delivering to their clients now?
One of the big ones is, I would say there's a couple of steps you can take, right? There's outside of products, and pen testing is relatively new as a service, but having a quarterly business review that's focused on cybersecurity is something that's really important. And sometimes we skip quarterly business reviews, or I opened 5 tickets and closed this and did this for you. But having an ongoing security conversation and we're doing a lot of this with our powered services group and others, of, hey, over the last 3 months, do you know what's happened? And beyond vulnerabilities, like the government passed a new law that's probably going to be enacted next quarter about, this type of requirement. There's a ton going on. So making you the expert on what's coming up and what you're doing to protect them and where you think they need to go. So building them a roadmap. The other thing that I've seen kind of universally is vCISO services. So a lot of people are well-versed in vCIO. I've seen it really crank up in Europe first, which is rather interesting. A lot of European MSPs have virtual CISOs because in a lot of cases, a lot of those small businesses, you now must legally, based on different requirements, have a privacy or a CISO officer on board. And you're not going to hire somebody if you're a tiny company. So being able to have somebody in your organization that has done the homework and can offer a virtual CISO service, and they can help guide what are the right things for this organization.
You've got a company in the expo hall here named Synomi, and basically what they do is help MSPs credibly provide a vCISO service for that very reason.
Yep.
One last question, because you were talking, with SIEM, it as with a lot of security technology, starts in the enterprise, works its way into the managed services world. This is not a roadmap question per se, but are there technologies in use in the enterprise right now that you have a sense are going to make their way into this market too?
I think it's really interesting. And that's a great, I mean, you used to be able to see what's going on in the enterprise, what are they buying, and delay it 3 to 5 years, start building it simpler, easier, cost effective. That's kind of changed with AI because you do have some more things going on around web scanning and things like that are just, table stakes in the enterprise, but aren't done at all at the small business. But I think AI has kind of changed the game in terms of what's coming downstream. It's not 3 to 5 years. Things they're messing around with AI, they're messing around with out in that hall right now. I guarantee. I mean, I've learned a lot more from MSPs who are very tactically. They're like, write me a PowerShell script that goes to a machine, and the guy's showing me how he does it now, and he's like, here you go, and then I'm going to tweak it because there's some little, errors or what have you. He goes, but that used to take me 45 minutes. Now it takes me 5. And that's a tactical use case. So in the enterprise, AI is the Wild West. You've got, privacy and CISOs trying to figure out what are our policies, and almost like shadow IT, but on steroids. You've got employees just using it, right? And trying to figure out what they're going to do with it. I think it's clear that technology is going to be downstream, certainly for MSPs doing their job. And we saw a lot of that today. How can it help with tickets? How can it help respond to security incidents and prompt you or get you the information? I mean, for years or forever, information was reports or a dashboard, right? And you set up the columns. Machine is a Windows and user is this. And now it's show me everything that Mike did in the last 48 hours and have it go and pull all the stuff for you. So I think it's going to happen at the same time. What we've been trying to do is we call it practical AI. Like if you can go to ChatGPT and cut and paste, what's the point of doing it for you? Where we can use some of the data and some of the things that are unique to get the answer to you right as you are happening. So I think you're going to see that happen at the SMB level and the enterprise level at pretty much the same time.
Mike, we really appreciate you making some time for us in the middle of a very busy week for you.
Oh, it's always fun. Thank you guys for coming.
For folks in the audience who want to learn more about Kaseya SIEM or maybe just get in touch with you, where should they go?
Kaseya off of our homepage, the SIEM is now there. If you're already using our K365 solutions, we're going to sign up the first 500 and run that probably over the summer here, and for our guests in the Southern Hemisphere during the winter, and then go wide with it. So it's right on the website. You can fill that out.
Fantastic. Mike, thanks again for joining us very much.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
Folks, Eric and I are going to take a quick break now. When we come back on the other side, we're going to share a few final thoughts about this conversation with Mike Puglia from Kaseya, have a little fun, wrap up the show. Stick around. We're going to be right back. And welcome back to part 3 of this episode of the MSP Chat Podcast. We are still live at Kaseya Connect 2025. We were just joined by Mike Puglia. Very interesting conversation in a lot of ways. I'll tell you, just in terms of the news hound in me, the journalist, when we were at the general session this morning and they positioned the dollar per user per month pricing as an introductory rate, I thought, well, okay, for that first 500 users, as a reward for being an early adopter, we're going to give them this incredible kind of price. And the number might go up, but it doesn't sound like it's going to go up dramatically. Basically, and this was enlightening for me, they're going to use those first 500 early adopters to get a sense for how much SOC capacity, how much capacity in general MSPs consume in bulk. They're going to compare that to the estimates that got them to $1 per user per month. So if it turns out that it needs to be, $1.50 or $1.25 or $1.07, they will learn that within a matter of months and adjust the pricing. But it doesn't sound like this is some teaser rate that becomes $25, per user per month in Q3 or Q4.
Yeah, I mean, they presented it, almost as this is our thank you to you MSPs. So we're trying to keep the costs low. And I can, as I think about it more, what they're doing and how you just described it, Rich, is a very measured approach to make sure that they're doing it thoughtfully and carefully and working out the kinks and the bugs so that they can then scale it more broadly.
So, it's like you said, it's another disruptive story from Kaseya. So that, the even bigger news at the show was the introduction of another Kaseya 365 SKU, Kaseya 365 Ops, PSA documentation, Connect Booster for payments, stuff that according to Kaseya typically adds up to $400 per user per month. They're selling that at $129 per user per month.
Per technician per month. Right?
Was it per technician?
Yeah, I think it was $129 per MSP technician per month is what I understood.
Okay, which would make a lot more sense, actually.
Yeah.
Still a pretty disruptive.
Very disruptive to have that capability and to have the ability to basically, the AI across all of these platforms, and then to create this operational dashboard that provides visibility and ease of ticket closure and efficiency and reporting. The short demo that they presented during the keynote was quite impressive.
Well, folks, we have got time at this point in the show for just one last thing. And so we're at Kaseya Connect. It is actually April 30th as we're recording the show. Eric and I are going straight from here to the RSA conference in San Francisco to really dive deep into security. And then I at least go home on Friday, May 2nd, which is good. That is just in time to be in Seattle on Saturday, May 3rd, which is World Naked Gardening Day. And little did we know, Eric, World Naked Gardening Day was born in my hometown of Seattle, Washington, the birthplace of Naked Gardening Day. In 2005, Mark Story, a Seattle-based naturist, decided gardening is fun. It's even more fun without pants. What started out as a Seattle phenomenon took the world by storm, and now apparently people do it all over the place. I've got a few safety tips, though, on naked gardening. Watch out for slugs. They're slow, they're sneaky, they find their way into places you didn't know existed and probably don't want them. Use eco-friendly products, of course. You've got pesticides and delicate bits. We don't want those to mix. And no power tools, again, could be dangerous.
Good tips, Rich. I mean, I imagine there might be a market for naked farm to table, vegetables and such, as long as, folks are careful about how they harvest.
Las Vegas, Nevada is the birthplace of World Naked Farm to Table. And you witnessed it, folks. And we thank you for that. We thank you for witnessing that and for joining us on this episode of the show. We're going to be back in a week's time with another episode for you. Until then, I will just remind you that this is both a video and an audio podcast, which means that if you are listening to us right now, but you like to watch podcasts too, you can find us on YouTube. If you are watching us on YouTube, but you're into audio podcasts, go to Spotify, Google, Apple, you name it. Wherever you get your podcasts, you're going to find us there too. And wherever you find us, please subscribe, rate, review. It's going to help other people find and enjoy the show just like you do. This show is produced by the great Russ Johns. It is edited by the great Riley Simpson, and they are both part of the team with us here at Channel Mastered. They can and will create a podcast for you if you'd like them to. Podcasts, though, are just a tiny little bit of what we do for our clients at Channel Mastered. If you want the big picture, go to www.channelmastered.com. Channel Mastered has a sister organization called MSP Mastered. That is Eric working one-to-one with MSPs to help them grow and optimize their business. And you can learn more about MSP Mastered at www.mspmastered.com. So once again, we thank you for joining us. We're going to see you in a week. Until then, folks, please remember, as always, you can't spell channel without MSP.